Inspector Deck. He like the dude who lay back and watch you play yourself because he know you lying and he take you to court after that because he the inspector. Raekwon. He the chef cooking up some marvellous shit to get your mouth watering. Method Man. Add different methods to the way he do his shit. Roll that shit, light that shit, smoke it. You God. He a psychopathic thinker. Old dirty bastard. There ain't no father to his style. Ghostface Killer. He on some now you see me, now you don't. You know what I'm saying? The RZA. Sharpest motherfucker in the whole clan. He always on point. The Jizza. They form like Voltron and Jizza happened to be the head. Other guys who weren't mentioned in that skit. Enter the Wu-Tang with 36 chambers. Okay, so here's my 36 Chambers review finally. A little later than I anticipated, but got sidetracked with a few things, and I won't lie, this took me a little while to put together this review. In my teens, when this came out in 1993, me and my friends used to listen to this all the time. The classic urban white boy teenager shit that we used to do, smoking weed in our friend's car, driving around, doing crazy shit. We would park up in legal parking areas and listen to music at respectable levels. Music doesn't have to be loud to be enjoyable, guys. We used to listen to all the West Coast stuff like Dr. Dre's The Chronic, Snoop Dogg's debut, Doggy Style, which is a great album. Both of them were great albums. Listen to a lot of that stuff, Cypress Hill. But Wu-Tang Clan was a completely different beast altogether, representing the East Coast and largely credited with the East Coast Renaissance. And there was something darker with this stuff, even though it was representing a very similar lifestyle. There was just something darker about the tales from New York that was represented in Wu-Tang's music that I always preferred this stuff to a lot of the West Coast stuff. As good as that was, please do not take that as a diss, any West Coast representors. The origins of the title itself, 36 Chambers, most likely stem from a kung fu movie, the 36th Chamber of Shaolin, but there are also some people who've speculated that it might actually reference the heart or the hearts of all the members. There are 4 chambers in the heart. There are 9 members of Wu-Tang. 9 times 4 equals 36. 36 chambers. I think it's more likely the kung fu reference, but interesting fact. Interesting facts from genius.com. Just one more thing before we get stuck into the songs. The album cover itself features only 6 members of the Wu-Tang, all of which are dressed in black hoodies and sock masks pulled over their faces. Apparently there was only 6 instead of 9 because, let me see, I think apparently Method Man, You God and Master Killer were indisposed and didn't turn up for some reason, so there were only 6 members there, but it's still a great cover. And apparently the photographer Daniel Hastings got the idea when he actually saw the Wu-Tang when they were performing live once. They pretty much rushed another group off stage, pretty much wearing the same sort of attire, and proclaimed Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with, and pretty much put their fucking mark down, took their territory. So that was done. Without further fucking about, let's get into some of the songs. Track 1 is Bring the Ruckus, and this song starts out with one of the many samples we get from kung fu movies. Shaolin versus Wu-Tang in particular, we get many, god dang, and there's many of these peppered throughout the album. Shaolin shadowboxing and the Wu-Tang sword style. If what you say is true, the Shaolin and the Wu-Tang could be dangerous. Do you think your Wu-Tang sword can defeat me? This track is pretty much the band proclaiming their dominance and their desire to take over the scene. Bring the motherfucking ruckus! Track 2, Shame on and Woo Buck Wild with the Trigger. This one features predominantly ODB, Raekwon and Method Man. Has to be said, Old Dirty Bastard always was and still is my favourite of the Wu. Genuinely sad when he passed away. Crazy, crazy motherfucker. And I guess this is another track that's pretty much displaying their dominance and pretty much telling people not to fuck with them. This one features a sample from Different Strokes by Syl Johnson and Black and Tan Fantasy by jazz legend Thelonious Monk. Hell of a lot of samples. I don't know how many of them I'm gonna discuss on each track, because otherwise this could easily be an hour long. There's one line in particular I always loved in this, and again it's ODB. Warriors, come out and play! Which is of course in reference to the movie The Warriors, where they say the exact same line in The Warriors, the movie. Up next we have Clan in Da Front. Not that clan. Outside of the intro, which is performed by RZA, this is pretty much one of the only solo tracks on the album in which it's pretty much just Jizza, aka the Genius. Wu-Tang Killer bees, we on a swarm. I don't know about bees, but these flies are certainly fucking pissing me off. Wu-Tang, 7th Chamber. Yo Meth, where my killer tape at? It's worth pointing out at this stage just how many skits there are in the album. All of them are kind of performed by various members and very much reflect the lives they were living. I think again there's always a legitimacy about these sorts of bands. It's like a lot of the metal bands that come from the shitter areas. There's a legitimacy to what they say when you've grown up in poverty and crime and violence, and yeah, it just gives your words that much more meaning and impact. Those aren't put in for comedic effect for this video, by the way. I believe that is, I believe that's for the birds. Oh, these flies, man, dirty bastards. But yeah, back to 7th Chamber, with the exception of Protect Your Neck. This one features the most amount of members of the clan, and pretty fucking awesome track. It'll appear later on in the album as well as a remix. Right, and now we get to the first of many of the real standout tracks in the album. Can It Be All So Simple? Really great song. I love this one from the moment I heard it, and being that I'm an old fucker now and got a significant more amount of life experience under my belt, I kind of feel this one even more poignant, even though fucking A. Now, as far as the samples goes, this contains a sample of Gladys Knight and the Pips, The Way We Were. Can it be that it was all so simple then? Very nostalgic sounding. Oh, fuck off. It's a house made of hay. In terms of the Wu-Tang itself, this is Raekwon and Ghostface Killah. Raekwon takes the first verse and it's pretty much him reminiscing on life growing up and how tough it was and how he just wanted to get the fuck out of the hood. And the second verse is Ghostface Killah talking about dreams, actually what he wanted, the sort of aspirations that he had in life and what he wanted to attain. And I guess ultimately did. Raekwon, yeah, my pops was a fiend since 16. Shooting at that shit in his bloodstream. And this stark reality of a heroin addicted father is juxtaposed with Ghostface later on. I want to have me a fat yacht and enough land to go and plant my own cess crops. Fantastic song, still really holds up to this day. The whole album does. Next up, The Mystery of Chess Boxing. And the title of this song was inspired by a 1979 kung fu film, The Mystery of Chess Boxing. They changed the to a duh. Genius. A game of chess is like a sword fight. You must think first before you move. That sample itself was actually taken from Shaolin and Wu-Tang. But I think it also features samples from another film called 5 Deadly Venoms. I always remember the opening. This one got me straight away as soon as I heard it with You Guard. Raw, I'ma give it to ya, with no trivia. Raw like cocaine straight from Bolivia. Always loved that rhyme. I haven't mentioned too much about the beats, but I absolutely love the beat on this track. RZA, of course, being the mastermind behind all the beats that the various members would spit over. Next up we have Wu-Tang Clan, Ain't Nothing to Fuck With, Tiger Style. And this one features some samples from the film Executioners from Shaolin. This song pretty much tells it like it is. I mentioned earlier on about Wu-Tang invading the stage, pushing another band off stage, singing Wu-Tang Clan Ain't Nothing to Fuck With. That's pretty much where they're coming from with this. The back half of this song is pretty much RZA giving shout outs to everyone predominantly in America, but all the supporters of the band across the world displaying their dominance and the support that they have. Another great track with some fantastic spitting. I do love how these guys spit verse. Next up we have another absolute standout, C.R.E.A.M. Cash rules everything around me. C.R.E.A.M. get the money. Dollar dollar bill, y'all. This one features a sample from As Long As I've Got You by the C.R.E.A.M. This one features predominantly Raekwon and Inspector Deck with Method Man. And this is pretty much a song of doing what you had to put food on the table. Couldn't life just be quite simple? That was the other song. But Raekwon tells us, sticking up white boys in ball courts. My life got no better. Same damn low sweater. Where Inspector Deck informs us, a man with a dream with plans to make cream, which failed. I went to jail at the age of 15. Well, that didn't work. Real stories and very relevant. I think anyone can kind of relate to this song to a certain extent. Next up we have Method Man. B-E-N-J-A-M, man. Benjamin. This one starts out with another skit that basically this is all the band members saying how they torture a motherfucker in various forms. Very funny. How white do I sound at times? But this song starts out with, of course, Method Man. M-E-T-H-O-D, man. And this is one of the best introduction tracks and an introduction to a new talent ever. I think RZA knew exactly what he was doing. Basically, I think the first single they put out was Protect Your Neck. And side B of that was this track. I think he knew that people would take to this song straight away. Really great track, with Method Man proving just what a smooth motherfucker he is. Speaking of Protect Your Neck, that's what we've got next. Again, this was the first single and it gained some traction pretty much straight away. It was a limited release, I believe, but it got people taking notice right from the off. This one starts out with a snippet of a interview that the band did on a radio interview, but it has somebody calling in. You know what I want to hear, right? I want to hear that Wu-Tang joint. Apparently all of the vocals were recorded to a completely different beat, which RZA then changed later on. Next up we have a really dark song, Tears. This is one of my favourites on the album. Very, very dark song, this one. The first verse on this deals with RZA's brother getting shot. I'm not sure if this is a real... I assume this is a real life account. I don't know, I didn't look into it enough. I should have done, really. If it's true, this one features RZA's brother being sent on an errand to the store and then getting held up along the way and getting shot. I ran frantically, then I dropped down to his feet. I saw the blood all over the hot concrete. I picked him up, then held him by his head. His eyes shut, that's when I knew he was. Second verse, we have Ghostface Killer recounting a time when he and a homeboy, a friend, visited a lady of ill repute. And his friend had unprotected sex and ended up getting HIV. Always rub her up, guys. Mo said he'll go first. I said I'll take next. Here, take this raincoat and practice safe sex. He seemed to ignore. I said, be for real. She's not even worth it to go for raw deal. I shouldn't take the piss, really, because this is not a happy song at all, and definitely recounts real life tales of things going shit. This one features a sample from Wendy Renee. After laughter comes tears, which is, I guess, the point of the song. Next up we have Wu-Tang 7th Chamber Part 2. This is pretty much a remix of Part 1, only this one starts out with a snippet of Clan in the front. Next up on the album I have is Method Man's Skunk Mix, and yeah, this is another remix, only it has different samples and different lyrics, so it's quite a different song then, really. And finally we have Conclusion. This one pretty much is just the radio interview that I mentioned earlier. I think he asked the group, what sort of style is Wu-Tang? Where we immediately get another sample from Shaolin versus Wu-Tang. It's a secret! Never teach the Wu-Tang! And the final words we hear on the album is a repeated sample of RZA, you best protect your neck. So that's the album. Now in terms of hip-hop, this is an absolute classic. I mean, it's pretty much a classic full stop. It's just such a great album. It certainly reminds me of a definite period in my life, much like Definitely Maybe, which I covered a couple of weeks back. This is just one of those albums I listened to a hell of a lot when I was younger. I've not listened to it so much lately, but it was a real pleasure listening to this one again. 36 Chambers completely changed the way people did hip-hop, and as I mentioned earlier, it put East Coast hip-hop squarely on the map, brought them right up in comparison with the West Coast. Still holds up to this day. Dark, gritty, real, just really just a fucking great album. But anyway, there we go. So that was Wu-Tang. Check it out if you haven't already. The fuck, if you don't know this album, you're a twat. I will be back at some other point with some other thing doing this shit again. Fucking fell off.